And so the Mr. Building owner, Mr. Building Developer, you have to make a decision. Am I going to go ahead and pay all this money out up front and pay for storage, or I'm going to gamble and wait and then risk delaying the completion of the project? So,
and a lot of times in storage, you got to store off site and then move it again.
Yes, because unfortunately, either you have a small job site with limited laydown area, so you can't put any more storage in there with storage containers or loose goods or whatever, and then also too, unfortunately, the criminal element of society is kind of caught on to this. So as store goods are coming in, a lot of it's getting ripped off.
Hey guys, Jeff Spencer here with ProfitDig, and got Jerry behind the scenes over there. Other partner Jeff Givens, and we got a special guest tonight, Mr. Mike Yates.
Good evening.
Hey guys, before we get started, just be sure and hit the like, share button, and share us as much as you can. Like our content, listen to it. It can be informative and may help you in the future. So please like and share our videos. Mike, how you been, man?
Pretty good.
Good.
Doing a lot of traveling?
Yeah, I know you do, and we in the midst of crazy times. We've got pandemic, and then we've got a stalemate, then we got a pandemic again, and then but construction seems to be going on.
It's persevering.
Yeah,
and I think that's the best way to describe the market right now. Is especially some of the harder hit areas, specifically with COVID-19 lockdowns and things such as that, is the construction industry is persevering.
Yeah.
Our prior discussion before we started the videos, some of the insight, some of the things I've seen, and some of the things I've witnessed and learned this year is every job site that I've been on, and we focus primarily on medical design and medical construction and medical facilities, but I would have to say across the board, commercially speaking, in the commercial construction world and even trickling down into the residential world, is there's two main impacts into the marketplace right now, and that is labor. There's I want to say a shortage in labor, because it seemed like, especially at the height of the pandemic, every week you'd be on a conference call and there's like, well, this group tested positive or that group tested positive. We're having to shut down for a week, and and so there's a labor shortage out there, which was already kind of short supply due to the very nature of, I guess, the supply of labor in the United States. I mean, if you've been in the construction industry for any number of years, like we have, there's not a lot of young people coming up in the industry to start with. So you already had kind of a short supply of labor in the trades. And then on top of that, then you add in a pandemic, so you start taking that short supply and you start pulling people away from it. That starts affecting the job site's productivity. Mm-hmm. So you had not only general contractors, but subcontractors and suppliers going all the way back to the supply side. You've got, even on the supplier side, they're having labor shortages. They can't keep production at a normal level, because any day or any week they're going to have a labor shortage, so they can't keep the production levels what they need. And then the other side of that, I kind of already started hitting on that, is supply side. Ever since this thing first started, it doesn't matter what material it is, there's been a shortage of some type all across the board, across the entire spectrum. Wood, light gauge metal products, gypsum drywall, fasteners. I mean, just last month we had an issue. We couldn't get a roof put on a building because they couldn't get the 14-inch long fasteners that were made overseas to put, to fasten the insulation product down to the decking with.
And then also now, I mean, you've got container ships have been sitting out at sea because of custom issues.
Exactly.
For 3 to 4 months. It's got major materials that we need to get our manufacturing back up and going.
And, I've seen smaller jobs hadn't been affected as bad as larger jobs, but we've got a particular project we're doing in Houston where the general contractor had to go back to his subcontractor, and they had to go back to vendors. And fortunately, a lot of the vendors are, experiencing a lot of the same problems. So they're starting to work together and kind of join forces in formulating action plans to help a client in the marketplace. They had to pull from 6 different vendors just to get enough light gauge metal and drywall to construct that project. 6 different vendors. Crazy. That's unheard of.
Yeah.
So and then on our end, we're having to do all kinds of material substitutions and submittal requests and reviews on stuff that we normally don't use or normally don't see, or we've had to relax some guidelines on this or that, what have you, just to make sure that the building keeps moving along.
But in what you're talking about right now, we're in the same process right now on a job in like eastern Middle Tennessee, and I've already submitted submittals, for our pipe products on a specific job, and when we got the notice to proceed and got ready to start the job site, get materials delivered, our supplier could not deliver materials.
Yeah, and most material quotes nowadays, used to you could get, 90-day, lock in on your pricing. You could get, back in the old days, you could get 180 days, 6 months. 90 days. Now you're lucky if you get 7 days.
Most of mine are 7 to 10 days.
Yes. So a lot of them are not even guaranteeing your price past 24 hours.
So every time I submit a bid, I put a clause in there in my notes saying material price is only good for 7 to 10 days because of a volatile market.
Yes. And what is boiling down to, and we were talking about this earlier, is in my particular the responsibility I have with our company, when we have a project kickoff, when we go into construction, at the kickoff meetings, I generally have a general statement that I put out now about Mr. Building Owner, Mr. Building Developer, people's paying the bills to build this thing. We've got to set the expectation that we need to get our materials procured as quickly as possible. Right. And under normal circumstances, we wouldn't be buying, Division 7 or 8 or 9 or what have you, specialty products at the front end of the job when we're just starting to do footings, but we know we've got lead time issues on doors and frames and hardware and what have you, so we're going to have to buy this stuff out earlier, roofing systems and things like that, and you're going to have stored goods, we're going to have warehousing, you're going to have to be paying for materials earlier. So
are you having to pay extra cost to expedite materials?
Yes. And so the Mr. Building Owner, Mr. Building Developer, you have to make a decision. Am I going to go ahead and pay all this money out up front and pay for storage, or I'm going to gamble and wait and then risk delaying the completion of the project? So
a lot of times in storage, you got to store off site and then move it again.
Yes, because unfortunately, either you have a small job site with limited laydown area, so you can't put any more storage in there with storage containers or loose goods or whatever, and then also too, unfortunately, the criminal element of society is kind of caught on to this. So as stored goods are coming in, a lot of it's getting ripped off.
Well, let me ask you this: in your personal opinion, I'm a contractor. I'm looking at future projects. The market is unpredictable right now. We have no idea where it's going, what's going to happen, or what's going to end up at. What's your recommendation to contractors in this time? Do you go ahead and pay the extra money and store the material and take a chance on the market falling, and then you got all this high dollar material that you have nothing to do with?
Well, me personally, if I was a subcontractor, which I have been in the past, I would have specific clauses in my proposals, and if I was successful in winning that bid, those clauses would be enacted into the fact that we're going to go ahead and buy our material out as early as possible. We're going to have sorry about that.
Get a little duck season going on here.
Yeah. We're going to have extra fees in there for storing goods. To ensure that both myself as the subcontractor and the client, that we mitigate as much liability as we can with that stored material. So the longer you got to store it, the more likely it can get damaged, it can any number of things.
Right.
So we want to make sure, but we want to also make sure that the specified material, as much as possible, that we have that in I say in hand, in my possession. And if I have to store it for 6 months or whatever, as long as the building owner or project owner is willing to pay you for it on the front end, that would be my recommendation to do for somebody.
So that's one thing we've got into here lately. One of our big things, of course, I'm more in the pipe industry, but pipe has been tough to get.
Mm-hmm.
Anything 10-inch or less has been pretty easy to get for the most part. 10-inch or bigger has been a real struggle. And so one thing we started doing, like fittings, because most of our fittings come from India. Well, mm-hmm. India, back in June, they had a major outbreak of COVID. Mm-hmm. It shut down most of the industry.
Production went down to zero.
Went down to zero.
Export did.
Yeah, and so we got stockpiles of pipe, but we have no fitting. So we can go so far, then we got to stop. So we've been stockpiling some fittings for a few months now, and they're like 3 times as much as it was, back in, mm-hmm. in like March, April, May.
It's driving total job cost up, driving total job duration for completion. Mm-hmm. It's extending because...
But what about the haggle? When it comes into, whose responsibility is it? I'm
mm-hmm.
I'm the subcontractor. I've been to a GC. He's got a commitment to his owner. At that point, it's like I'm lobbying for change orders for these extra material prices. They're not wanting to pay them, so we got to meet in the middle. What's a good strategy?
Yeah, there has to be... there has to be an expectation on the project owner's side of knowing the market. I think it's a pie in the sky to have an opinion of we're not going to do any change orders on this project. This is the total cost we have. We can't get any more money. We're not going to do any change orders, and we're going to be done on X date. Period.
That's pretty much like a GMP project.
Yes, or even a hard bid project, but. I think it's unrealistic for somebody to sit there and try to hold somebody's feet to the fire on that nowadays. And if somebody is towing that hard line with their general contractor and with their subcontractors, in my opinion, they're setting themselves up for failure.
To burn bridges that way.
Well, not just to burn bridges, because just because you get a submittal approved and you execute an order and you start getting material in, doesn't mean you're going to get 100% of your material ordered. Yeah. I've seen that happen 2 or 3 times already. Where we get 60% of the order in, and then we get notified we can't get the rest of the material for 90 or 120 days.
But and when you're working for a specific, I go back to pipe industry, when you work for a specific municipality, you give submittals. Well, this supplier cannot, supply that, mm-hmm. so you go to someone else. Well, the municipality says we don't care what product you use, but it's got to be that same product throughout the job. Mm-hmm. And so that's where we can get 25% of the product here, we can get 30% here, we can get another 20% here. That's the issue. The product is there, but you got to go to different manufacturers to get it all.
That's where there has to be some latitude on the project owner's side to be able to rely upon their consultants to say, okay, we have three different manufactured products here, but all of the specs are the same. They have the same production numbers, they have the same performance numbers, and they have the same warranty numbers. So, if we have to do a mix of these 3 items, we're okay. That's where the project ownership has to have some latitude there and say, well, we're just going to have to relax our standards if we're going to get this thing built, because there's no way we're going to get 100,000 foot of this pipe. We're just not going to get it.
Yeah.
Or we have to make the decision, if this is the way we're going to stay, then this project's not going to get done in 6 months. It's going to take 18 months.
Right.
And we're going to have to pay that contractor those extra general conditions and things such as that. So,
well, Mike, hey, bud, I appreciate it. We're going to get back to you here in a few minutes, but guys, we've got to cut it short for right now. We appreciate y'all's time. Appreciate y'all joining in, and hope this has been informative information for you. And as always, we appreciate your feedback, comments, and please don't forget to like and share. Thank you very much. Mike, thank you.
Thank you.